All right, let's dive into this school trip project. Looks like we've got a checklist, learning targets for an advanced Spanish class, and even some flight and packing info.
And a unit outline focused on real-world travel planning using Spanish. It's all connected.
So much to unpack here, but that's what we're here for,
Yeah,
to break it all down.
exactly. To help you plan an amazing trip and really bring that Spanish curriculum to life.
Awesome. Okay, so first things first, where are we even thinking of going? The checklist is any Spanish-speaking country.
It does, which is a pretty incredible opportunity, really. It means you can cater the trip to your students, their interests, what you're teaching.
Oh, I love that. So, like, if the class is super into art history, boom, you're off to Madrid to hit up the Prado Museum.
Exactly. Or maybe they're more into music and dance. Then Seville, the heart of flamenco, might be the perfect fit.
Oh my gosh, yes. You know what? I remember my high school Spanish teacher. She went to Costa Rica, and she did this whole zip lining thing through the rainforest. We were all obsessed.
Perfect example. It's those personal stories that really grab the student's attention, bring the destination to life.
Totally. And hold on, 7 to 10 days. That could even be a multi-city trip, right?
Yeah.
Madrid, and then like hop on a high-speed train to Barcelona.
Absolutely. Lots of possibilities there. But before we get too carried away with all the fun stuff, let's talk budget. We've got a limit here,
All right,
right?
$3,500 per person, and that has to cover everything: flights, hotels, food, activities.
Souvenirs.
Yeah, everything. So choosing a less expensive destination, like maybe Guatemala or Ecuador, could give you more wiggle room for some of those extras.
Good point. It's not about being cheap, it's about being smart with the money.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean you have to sacrifice on the experience. There are amazing, affordable adventures to be had everywhere.
All right, so we've got our destination possibilities swirling around, and we know our budget. Let's get into some logistics, like the flights.
The checklist is really clear about booking those round-trip flights. Makes sense. Okay, so what kind of details are we talking? Besides the obvious, like airline and dates.
Well, you'll definitely want to note the departure and arrival times
Hmm.
and check for layovers, baggage allowances, and of course, the all-important total cost.
All crucial info for the budget and, for actually planning out the days.
For sure. And speaking of getting around, we can't forget about transportation once you're at your destination.
Right. Are we taking taxis, buses, renting a car, or maybe even trying out the local train system?
Those are all great options. It depends on the pace of the trip and the vibe you're going for.
True. Okay, what about airport transfers? Getting to and from the airport in both cities.
Don't overlook those. They can make or break those first and last impressions of the trip. A smooth airport transfer can really set the tone.
For sure. All right, so we've talked destinations, budget, flights, ground transportation. Where are we crashing each night? Where are we staying?
Well, hotels are always a classic option. You've got everything from, your budget-friendly chains to those fancy boutique hotels.
Oh, and what about hostels? I've heard those can be a good way to save money and meet other travelers.
Definitely. Especially if you think your students would be up for a more social, kind of communal experience.
Now, earlier you mentioned unique lodging options. What did you have in mind?
Oh, there are some really cool possibilities. Like, imagine staying in a casa particular in Cuba.
Oh, what's that?
It's like a homestay situation. You get to experience local life firsthand, even have home-cooked meals. Or maybe a charming guest house in a village in Ecuador surrounded by mountains.
I'm already sold. That kind of cultural immersion is priceless.
Absolutely. And think of the stories your students will come home with.
All right, we've got our flights, transportation figured out, a place to stay. What about food?
Oh, yeah, got a plan for those hungry travelers. The checklist even reminds us to think about all three meals every day.
Yeah, which might seem obvious, but it's a chance to get creative and incorporate some real culinary experiences into the trip.
Exactly. Don't just think breakfast, lunch, dinner. Think, okay, we're in Mexico. Let's have a tacos al pastor night. Let's try all the different street food.
Yes. So much better than just grabbing a burger at a chain restaurant, right?
Way more memorable.
Yeah.
But, okay, realistically, probably can't have every meal be a culinary adventure. Got to balance those unique dining experiences with more practical, budget-friendly options, too.
Good point. Plus, some meals might already be included, like breakfast at the hotel.
Right. Okay, so we've got our destination in mind, flights booked, transportation sorted, a place to sleep, and a plan for some delicious meals. Now for the fun stuff.
Yeah.
The
This
activities.
is what it's all about, right? All the amazing things we're going to do.
This is where you can get really creative. Think museums, historical sites, walking tours, dance lessons, cooking classes, outdoor adventures. The possibilities are endless.
Wow. So many options. And the key is to create an itinerary that, caters to different interests and learning styles.
Absolutely. And don't forget to think about how all of this connects back to your learning objectives.
Oh, right. This isn't just a fun trip. We're learning Spanish here.
Exactly. So, for example, you mentioned the air plus a plus infinitive construction earlier, right? Well, that's a perfect way to incorporate Spanish into the itinerary. Instead of saying, visit the Prado Museum, it's vamos a visitar el Museo del Prado.
I love that. It's making the language real, something they're using every day, not just memorizing for a test.
Exactly. It becomes part of the experience. All right. Now, for the not so fun part, but a crucial one nonetheless, the budget.
Budgeting, it's got to be done.
Yep. And it's another great opportunity to use that Spanish. Think about having students research exchange rates, figure out how much spending money they'll need for souvenirs and those little extras.
Oh, souvenir shops are dangerous.
Mhm.
Got to have a plan. All right, so destination, flights, accommodation, food, activities. We're getting there. But before we send these lucky students off on their adventure, what about packing? Okay, so we're ready to pack those bags.
Almost. But packing for a trip to a Spanish-speaking country, well, it's not just about throwing some clothes in a suitcase.
Right. It's about being prepared for the destination, the weather, the culture, and all the amazing things we're going to do.
Exactly. And think of it as another learning opportunity. Have your students research the weather for the time of year you'll be traveling. Are they going to need, light clothes, layers for cooler temperatures, rain gear?
Oh, that's such a good idea. Practical research skills. I bet they'll pay more attention to those weather reports knowing it directly impacts their packing list.
Exactly. And, don't forget about cultural context. In some countries, more modest clothing might be appropriate, especially when visiting like religious sites or more traditional areas.
Right. Being mindful travelers, respecting local customs, super important. Okay. What about packing essentials beyond clothes? Like adapters, first aid kits, and of course, those all-important travel documents.
All must-haves. Make sure they've got that passport, plenty of validity remaining, their flight tickets, any visas they need, and travel insurance. Oh, and photocopies of their first documents just in case.
Smart. Photocopies saved me once when I lost my passport on a trip. Huge headache averted. Okay, let's talk money. How do students manage their finances responsibly while traveling abroad?
Budgeting skills are key here. Encourage them to research the local currency, exchange rates, figure out how much spending money they'll need for souvenirs, snacks, and those, unexpected expenses that always seem to pop up.
Because, let's be real, those souvenir shops are calling. Having a budget will help them resist those impulse buys. Speaking of money, what about fundraising? I know the checklist mentioned some ideas.
Yeah, and this is a chance to get creative and tie it back to your Spanish curriculum. Like, instead of just a bake sale, why not a tapas night? Students can prepare and sell traditional Spanish snacks.
Yum. I love that idea. Gets everyone excited about the trip and practicing their food vocabulary.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about something that's super important. Cultural sensitivity.
Yes, research is key. Encourage your students to go beyond those typical tourist guidebooks. Really delve into the culture, customs, etiquette of the destination. It's about ensuring a respectful and enriching experience for everyone.
It's about moving beyond being a tourist, becoming a traveler, someone who's really engaging with the place and its people. And, even learning a few basic Spanish phrases can make a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. Even just hola, gracias, por favor. It goes a long way. It shows you're making an effort and it can lead to some wonderful connections.
Okay, so we've got our bags packed, money matters sorted, cultural sensitivity top of mind, a few Spanish phrases ready to go. What about the itinerary, the roadmap for the whole trip?
It's all about that detailed day-by-day schedule. It should outline each day's activities, specific times for meals, transportation, guided tours, and definitely some pre-time for exploration.
Keeps everyone organized and on track. I get it.
Hmm.
But how can we make that itinerary more than just a list of activities? Turn it into a tool for language learning.
Remember that air plus a plus infinitive construction? Well, there you go. Instead of just listing visit the Prado Museum, it's vamos a visitar el Museo del Prado.
Ooh, right. I like it. And those visuals we talked about earlier, like the maps and diagrams?
Yes, those can really bring the itinerary to life. Imagine students creating a map of their destination with labels like, cerca de near or lejos de, far from.
Perfect. Okay, so we've got a well-structured itinerary. It's visually engaging, incorporates Spanish. Let's bring it all back to those learning objectives for your advanced Spanish class.
I mean, think about it. This trip planning process is hands-on learning at its best.
It really is. They're doing research, expanding their vocabulary, using those grammar concepts.
Budgeting, collaboration, all those real-world
And
skills.
let's not forget those final deliverables. A travel brochure in Spanish, a bilingual slideshow presentation for parents, a fun little commercial to promote the trip to other students.
Wow, a portfolio of work that showcases language proficiency, creativity, problem solving, teamwork.
These students are going to be so prepared for anything.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up, let's talk about one last but very important aspect of trip planning: safety. Safety should always be a top priority, especially when traveling with a group of students.
Absolutely. So, what kind of safety measures should teachers consider when planning a school trip abroad?
Well, first and foremost, you need that comprehensive list of emergency contact information, including, the contact details for the U.S. Embassy or consulate in your destination country. And it's always a good idea to have a designated meeting point in case anyone gets separated from the group.
Smart. Those are essential tips. And what about health and medical considerations? Any specific precautions teachers should take before and during the trip?
Yeah, definitely encourage students to consult with their healthcare provider about any necessary vaccinations or medications, especially if they have any pre-existing medical conditions. And packing a basic first aid kit is always a good idea, with pain relievers, bandages, antiseptic wipes, things like that.
It's always better to be safe than sorry. And what about safety tips specific to the destination? Are there any resources teachers can consult to learn about potential risks and how to stay safe?
Absolutely. The U.S. Department of State website has a section dedicated to travel advisories and safety information for countries all over the world. It's a great resource for teachers to get up-to-date information on, potential risks and safety tips for their chosen destination.
That's a fantastic resource. I'm sure teachers will find that incredibly helpful. It's reassuring to know that there are resources available to help them plan a safe and enjoyable trip for their students.
Wow, I'm exhausted just thinking about all the planning that goes into this. But in a good way. It's so exciting.
It is, and it's so rewarding to see it all come together.
You know what I'm really excited about, though? The cultural immersion part of this trip.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's one thing to read about a culture in a textbook, right?
Yeah.
But actually being there, experiencing it firsthand is just, there's no comparison. Totally. Imagine your students ordering tapas in a Spanish market, navigating the Mexico City metro, maybe even trying some salsa dancing in Cuba.
It's those experiences, those moments that create lasting memories and, really foster a deeper understanding of the world.
And it goes beyond just checking off the tour's attractions on a list. It's those little moments of connection.
Right, like striking up a conversation with a local shopkeeper or having dinner with a host family.
Those are the stories they'll be telling forever.
Exactly. And remember, cultural immersion isn't just about observing. It's about participating, being curious, asking questions, maybe even stepping outside of their comfort zones a little.
That's such good advice. It's about embracing the unknown and being open to new experiences. Who knows, maybe this trip will even spark a lifelong passion for travel and language learning.
Yeah, you've got a solid plan. You've got the vision for those immersive experiences. But I want to leave you with one last thought. How can you extend this learning beyond the trip itself?
Ooh, that's a great question. How do we keep the momentum going when they get back home?
Right. How do they integrate what they've learned into their everyday lives? Maybe they start a Spanish club at school, volunteer with a local Hispanic community organization, or even plan a Spanish night for their families to share what they've learned.
Love those ideas. Keep that passion for Spanish alive.
Exactly. Well, this deep dive has been a blast. You've got all the tools and inspiration you need to plan an incredible trip. So as you finalize your plans and embark on this journey with your students, just remember, be curious, be open to new possibilities, and most importantly, have fun.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Safe travels.